Welcome to the weekly Roc Open Mic. We do this call for you folks. MSPs ask that we talk about what's new with the platform, what's changed, and you wanted to also learn from your peers on what they've been automated. For those of you that monitor the coop, we're in a fire at the moment. Workflows are executing, albeit at a slower pace than normal. Luckily, they're executing. So if you're demoing today, first off, thank you for demoing in front of folks. That can be super stressful. I urge you before your demo to try to preload as much as possible. There's no need to actually have us all watch the results running your page. We trust you. We believe you. Pull up a completed execution and show folks. With that, just to give you a little detail, right now we're leaning to, we could be seeing a PostgreSQL bug. And so we're not finding a lot of data on it as we work through the issue. But luckily, we're able to still run during that time, just at a slightly slower pace. Once we try to find a workaround, we'll spin up all of our servers and we'll be going at a fast pace again. Does anyone want to talk about this now while we're all here? Any questions? Open discussion? It's been a pretty intense day over here. I know you folks deal with stuff like this a lot, but we have like all hands on deck pulling out their hair, stressing out. Yes, we're trying to make workflows fast. And the sad part is we had over the past 2 weeks, we had nearly cut the average webhook response time from 1.5 seconds to a half a second. So nearly 200% improvement on webhook response times. Yeah, it all happened because Lucas posted in the coop the other day that stuff was fast. Chris asks, any plans to spin up future availability zones? It may not help in this case. However, we do have multiple instances of Rewst running now. If everyone goes to status.rewst.io, you'll see the multiple instances of Rewst running right now. And that was one of the lessons learned we had earlier in this week is we did not have all of our Rewst instances plugged into our status website. And if you want to see something really cool on the status website, switch over from the uptime tab to the performance tab and look at the past 30 days for North America, and you'll see the improvements we had made over the past 30 days being tracked by our health system. Chris, did that help you at all? Adam's got his hand up.
I have. I've heard some rumors that I just wanted you to confirm or debunk. That actually Danial caused this problem as an excuse to avoid releasing folders and negative time savings for another week.
I think he is trying to divert flack away from
another week. Actually, we had to cancel it because of what Danial pulled today.
Happy birthday, Adam.
Danial, do you feel attacked in the workplace? Do you need help?
Yes, I'm blanking because I need help.
Yeah, but too bad because you didn't give us folders, so.
Hey, just for other ThreatLocker customers, I detected a problem this week related to Rewst, but it's not really Rewst's fault problem. In case you're seeing webhooks fail to fire PowerShell webhooks, they stopped properly resolving engine.rewst.io. And yeah, thank you. They've opened a ticket. We've whitelisted the known IPs at the moment, but if you're running into that, list the IPs in the PowerShell ring fencing policy, since we were talking about performance issues that are not Rewst's fault.
Thank you for the heads up, Jim Barry. It was nice seeing you this week too.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
I will, for the folks that are going to IT Nation Connect next week, I will be there. We'll see how much of my hair is left for that event. Any more questions? We're going to continue chugging along with the workers that we have working, and hopefully speed will increase as time goes, as we figure out this Postgres issue. Yes, please go on mute. All right, Ash, I'm gonna throw it back at you.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Okay, so we have a couple demos today that are pretty exciting, so hopefully everything goes smoothly for them. Let's jump right over to Nick, though, so that we can move everything along. Assuming you're on.
Do we have Nick? Let's see.
If not, we can jump to Daniel with an A first, and he can do his update.
Yeah, we don't have
Hello.
Nick. He's probably firefighting.
The firefighter. Okay. Well, I'm hoping that I have some good information or some fun stuff to show you guys next week. But for this week, we have 2 updates to give you. So 2 of our workflows have been modified to add some additional functionality. So the list all PSA contacts workflow modification was made that to the task that publishes user options. So we've added an email field to the Halo list users task. That means the email address will also be included in the options. We've also, to the on-prem create user workflow, added a manager to the sub workflow inputs and added the PowerShell to add that manager to the user if the manager field is filled out. As for what's coming soon that I hope to update you all on soon, we have our app builder apps. So right now, just as an update, we talked about this last week, we have import and export of these apps working, but we want to get cloning and syncing working. So the updates that we publish that will add more features and functionality and fix bugs and that type of stuff will get out to you as soon as we fix them. So that's why we're holding off on adding these into users' environments at the moment. But we have an operational analytics portal, which aggregates data from various tools and outputs that into your app. We have a forms portal, which lets you and your clients access the Rewst forms based on granular permissions. We have some granular permissions that are going to be coming out shortly. We've been working this week on a new on our new roles system, WorkOS, pushing that out. And so once that is fully pushed out, we will have the granular permissions for forms available. And then we have the all-in-one client portal that we talked about a bit last week and that we demoed, and that is still being maintained, updated, and hopefully will be available for people's environments next week. That's what we're shooting for. But that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, so now let's go over to Brandon.
Hey, yo.
Wait, do we want, before
Frank.
we do we want Frank? Do you have a question?
I do. Can you give me an example of what you mean by granular permissions on forms?
Yeah, so right now, so you'll be able to, like the easiest example for me is you have an organization and you have many users in that organization. You may only want some of those users in that org to have access to, say, offboard an employee. So you'll be able to set it up so you can create a new role, associate that form to that role. So only people with that role will have access to see that form and submit that form. Is that a decent example? Does that make sense?
It does. Okay. I was hoping more for like objects within a form. Oh, that's cool.
Objects. Yeah. So it's not that. It's not like to the component or form component level at this point, but yeah, just at the form level.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Brandon, over to you.
Alrighty, how's everybody doing? I decided to try to do tricky hats today, so I tried to get them as close together as possible so that you all have to look really hard and figure out how many hats I'm wearing. Because I'm gonna just have to start getting more creative with this stuff. But let me share my screen. I love it. I love the guesses coming in already. All right. Well, I'm not going to tell you until I go through this update, so you have to wait. First, we will start with our game tip of the week. So for those of you who did not spend $700 on a PS5 Pro because you could spend that money on games instead, you guys can look forward to some of the awesome November releases like Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. I'm personally most excited about that one. Mario & Luigi Brothership. And Lego Horizon Adventures, specifically because it's on the Switch. And I'm sorry for all of you PlayStation and Microsoft fans out there, but Nintendo has won. Both Microsoft and Sony are on the Switch, so I don't know what to tell you. But otherwise, really, the real game tip of the week this week is going to go to Reed, who's going to show something off that's pretty sweet later on. So look forward to that. And then you can just ignore everything I just said. Shout outs to Robert, Cohen, James, and Daniel, not with an A, for passing the foundation certification this week. You guys will collect your prestigious certified rooster badge in Discord and get access to our not so super secret Discord channel. And then shout outs to Gareth, Justin, Chris, and Haley for passing the clean automation certification. Y'all can take both of these certifications on CLUCK University and Rewst.help. And in fact, for any new customers here right now, if there just happen to be any, first of all, welcome if there are. But second of all, we did update some things in the CLUCK University section of Rewst.help. Rewst Foundations has been completely reworked, and we've just added these nice little icons to indicate some progress as you go through. So you can see what you should do first and how you can continue. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. And speaking of Rewst Foundations, we will have a Rewst Foundations bootcamp that you can sign up for live with the legendary Eddie Chow starting on Monday. We're going to split this up into 2 days. We're going to do it once a month for anybody who wants those live sessions with Eddie. It's going to be compact. We're going to go through the first 3 lessons in part 1, which will be Monday, and then the next 3 lessons in part 2. And actually, I haven't checked if that's Monday or Tuesday, so I'm not going to speak to that. But there are links to sign up here, and I can go ahead and drop those in the chat for anybody interested as well. We just wanted to make sure that those of you who do prefer live training with Eddie, so you can ask questions, you can get the value from chatting with such a legend, you will have the ability to do so, and it will be in a compact format. And for everybody else, if you want to either reference or go through self-serve on your own, we have that available on here as well. So want to make sure we're covering all the bases for all you beautiful people. Otherwise, you can check out our CLUCK Discord channel for any questions you have as you are learning, and you can sign up for our office hours as well to get some time with, again, Eddie, for any questions you have. Eddie is happy to help with anything you guys are going through, so feel free to sign up for that as well. And lastly, I'll drop down here to some quick updates. First of all, again, if you haven't seen the updates to the Rewst Foundation section, we have completely reworked that section. There's a lot of good stuff there, so go check it out. And we have also updated our CLUCK University landing page where you can get sort of the overview of everything that's there. If you guys haven't seen that, I'll just go ahead and click on that. This is the CLUCK landing page that shows you our getting started. And then Rewst Foundations will link you to the pages. You'll see the certification here, clean automation. We'll show you these pages, and then you can get to the certification here as well. So I would highly encourage you all to check that out if you haven't. Otherwise, we have some forms that you can fill out to give us some ideas or improvements, to give us some feedback here. And as far as documentation goes, we have 3 major updates this week. Well, I'd say not major, but significant, worthy of mention. We have the owned app registration page that we've updated with some CSP instructions. We worked with Willis on our team to make sure that that is updated and accurate for anybody going through that. The roles and permissions page has been updated to make sure that admin and member roles are more clearly defined. And then we have the pre-built automations page that you can go check out as well for App Builder. So go ahead and check that out. Let us know if you have any questions. Otherwise, that's going to be it from me, and I'll throw it back to you, Ash.
Thank you, Brandon. I think you might have a rival there with hat stacking. I can't tell if that's not even real. Okay, never mind. It's not real. I thought it was real for a second.
I love that it's not. I think that makes it better.
Awesome. All right, thank you. So now we are actually going to jump over to Tim, who may or may not have something pretty cool to walk us through, but at the very least, I'm assuming that you're going to be able to show some stuff off here.
Yeah, it looks like the platform is performing well enough for me to show it. So I'm going to try to do it live. And if not, then I do have pre-prepared screens. But I want to start off talking about open source software. So before I started working at MSPs 20 years ago now, I spent most of my time with open source, did Linux admin. I worked in e-commerce back in like 2000, 2001. And that's really been my passion, throughout my entire career. Open source is a way for, people to develop applications, collaborate with them, and build something for the community or even something for their own business that works. And just because it's free doesn't mean it doesn't work. Typically, an open source company will make money by either offering different features to their applications or providing premium support or professional services models on top of them. But one open source product that I was playing with this week is something called RustDesk. That is, I think, fairly new. I think it's been around just a couple of years. This is a remote control utility. So something like TeamViewer, Splashtop, Screen Connect, it operates a lot like that. So I took a look at their website. It looks like a really nice application, or it looked like it when I started looking at it. They've got some really good ideas. They really push self-hosting, which I like a lot. You can customize their client, but I think this is one of their premium features. So if you look to buy it, you can get it for free, where you self-host it and use community support. But their add-ons will let you have things like their web console. The thing about the web console is it's great. It may or may not be a great use case in MSPs because it may or may not be set up to be multi-tenant, which is where we see a lot of our issues with applications and that are not made for MSPs. But using something like Rewst, we can a lot of times add those features on to applications. So I started digging deeper. I looked into how you deploy their server. So if you look at their documentation, you can run, you can self-host their server, or you can use theirs. I wouldn't recommend using theirs for anything production. Pretty easily, either installed with packages, or the best way is using a Docker container, which is really easy. It doesn't store a lot of data. It doesn't need a lot of resources. It's really just an internet relay. So running it in a Docker container works very well. I stood it up on my TrueNAS server at home in like a minute. It was awesome. And then looking at how you deploy clients, they have a PowerShell script that basically streamlines the installation. And so this is kind of where I spent most of my time digging into how this thing works. Side note, if somebody writes a PowerShell script for deploying an application, and you want to borrow that PowerShell script for deploying your own application, there's nothing wrong with that. Scripts like this are simple. They're not deep intellectual property. You should not feel guilty for getting inspiration from someone else's PowerShell script that installs an app. Anyway. So looking at this, pretty easy to install. We want to get some results from this. We want to do some things like understand how it gets installed, make sure it gets the right configuration. As I mentioned, if you self-host, or you can self-host this, but in order to do so, you need to configure your clients to connect to your hosting. So I'll go talk a little bit about that. So like I said, I took their PowerShell, I modified it a little bit using Jinja parameters in the PowerShell to write it out. When we configure it for using a special host, the easiest way to configure it, especially if you're not paying for their commercial version, is to name your server parameters into the executable name before you execute it. So we have that in the workflow, which I will, if this menu goes away, the stupid screen. Go over here. So we can see that we set the file name based on an org variable. Where is it? Oh, this one. So I set up an org variable, and I do have a workflow configured for that too. That will basically allow you to enter in your host, and there's a key in a host as a minimum. You can also set up API and relay servers if you're paying for the commercial version, or if you want to set up additional relay servers. Pretty simple stuff again. Just a little bit. And so what I did was I had my existing Agent Smith app here. This is just listing the agents that I have Agent Smith on. The workflow is made to not require Agent Smith. You can actually do this with any RMM that, because we're just using our run PowerShell parameters. But the cool thing here is I can click a little button here in this app platform or app builder app. It's going to run a little workflow. I'm going to monitor, see if it's going to happen. Looks like it's running pretty quickly, so it should just take a few seconds. I'm not clicking anything here. And there we go. So it pops up and it actually goes ahead and launches into a remote support session with an endpoint here. If it doesn't pop up, or if you need to get the agent installed, you can, it'll give you this window here. This you can click and get the app installed for your machine. They also have a web client that you could use in a pinch. And then you can copy the ID password and use it for that. Again, I'm self-hosting, so I have the parameters set up for my host and the key here. If you do want to use my key, you're welcome to it, unless I decide to change it. But just know if you do, I may or may not sniff all your packets and be able to replay all your sessions. So it's your own risk. But really, this is a very simple workflow, and I just kind of wanted to show how you can use Rewst with applications that may not be built for the MSP space and get value from those apps. So, again, it's an open source app. You can pay for it and use their GUI if you want to maintain your agents. The way this is built, kind of did a little bit differently. So when it deploys the agent, I can also click here to uninstall it. And I've also built a timer in to come back and uninstall it. And you'll see that after this workflow runs, this session is actually going to end itself. Yeah, I'll be disconnected because the app is no longer running on that agent. It generates a new password randomly each time. And then again, it's ephemeral in the way this is built. If you wanted to configure it to keep the same password and build your own, static repository of all of your agents and just have hyperlinks to click them all, you could easily do that. Yeah, I do have another version of the workflow that I built that uses just our regular forms and email. So it'll email you that link instead of doing a pop-up in the app platform, but this came out pretty slick. I really like it. But yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Tim. That is so cool. I love, we were talking about yesterday, just that concept of making open source more accessible. Like so much of the stuff is simply just, oh, it's actually quite easy. The barrier was just, I didn't even realize that it was that easy, or I didn't have the infrastructure to set it up. But when you're using Rewst, now you do. So that's super cool. We're going to jump over to Gareth now, who has made some modifications to a crate to suit his needs. And I thought that was a pretty interesting use case. So, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. It's going to be quite hard to follow after that one. But yeah, so the crate that I've kind of made a bit of changes to, and obviously I know a couple of people asked in the Discord chat regarding the compromised mailbox. So as you know, Matt's done a really good job with it, but there were a few things missing. So if I share my screen, obviously I haven't like revamped the whole thing. I've just added kind of what I thought was missing. So one of the first things that were missing is they had the forced password reset on the option on the form, but that's all it did is just say, forced password on next sign in. It didn't actually reset the password or anything. So I've just kind of done a little bit of cheating here, but it does the job. The offboarding password reset that's kind of built in, I've just kind of reused that. That's the exact same logic with the random password generator. So, I'm not going to kind of go into that because that's the same as the offboarding, as I said. It'll go reset the password. And that's obviously going to be for force change password on next sign in. But as well as that, there was a couple of things, little bits are missing, which I'm going to go through. So the one thing I did notice is even kind of off the bat, you only had it where it created a new ticket every time. Where if you're running that compromised mailbox, you want to be updating your own ticket. So kind of. Instead of just having it where it's just create a new ticket only, I've put it to basically check to make sure the ticket number is picked up from the form, which obviously is already an option there. Essentially, all I've done is added some of the inputs because none of these inputs were actually in the original crate, so they are there. They've just not been put in, so it wasn't grabbing the information it needed to do a lot of things. So I've added that in, and again now it updates the ticket. But the parts that I've kind of updated myself, which wasn't there at all, was the disable rules. So obviously that's quite critical when it comes to compromised mailbox. No matter what that rule is, I want it to be disabled. So I'll kind of show you that. It's actually nice and simple. It's the first time I've ever done anything kind of like this. This is the entire workflow. So all we're essentially doing kind of here is literally kind of coming in and we're just running the graph just to basically get all the rules. So we need to list them first. Then once it kind of does it, we just get the result into the mailbox rules, and we're just passing it on. So the only thing I did notice, so I like to be quite thorough when I'm testing. So if anything has an action and everything, it's perfect and brilliant. But if it's read only, which some rules seem to be, it will keep coming up with like errors or a blank. So using the list that we obviously would get from the mailbox rules, you use the attributes here, and it does actually list it. It lists it now, even if it is read only, and then it'll update the ticket, say, oh, this will basically read only. You will have to go manually disable this. So it's just a nice little thing. So regardless whether it's done it or not, it's going to be telling you essentially whether that's been disabled or not. And then all it's going to do is obviously you want them to disable the rules. I don't want it to delete it just in case any of them rules are legit or anything else. All it's going to do is disable it, and then obviously it's going to turn anything that is enabled to false. And then just do a nice little ticket update after. Just a little bit simple depending on the conditions and what rules there is and stuff like that. So it looks longer than what it actually is, and then there's disabled at the end. So basically it'll list down what the rules actually was, the actions, everything else, which I'll show you in a minute, and then it will show it's now disabled them as well. So at least you kind of know what they were before you've done anything, and the after action. The other thing I've added in as well, so I've got a screenshot of the original one here, so obviously I've blurred out because it's got my IP and stuff in it. So this is the original report. So as you can see here, you've got the MFA methods, but it doesn't actually say what they are. And as good as the reports are, and I think it is a good idea just kind of for the auditing. For me, if I'm working directly with that compromised mailbox, or we're getting one of the other engineers who's not exactly experienced on the security stuff, but they could at least run this, that sort of thing. I want it to be where we can go into that ticket and it'll instantly update what the MFA methods were, whether it's been revoked, all that sort of stuff. So this one did take me a little while to figure out. But it does work quite well. So I couldn't actually go through and just basically go get the MFA methods, revoke all. For some reason, the graph wouldn't let me do that. So I kind of had to go through and essentially do it in an order, which took me a while to figure out which order to do it in, which will go and check to see what they've got and what they haven't. So essentially, it's getting all this is doing is literally just going off to when it wants to show. It's just literally going to get all the authentication methods. And then on here, as you can see, we've got quite a few different different aliases. So the MFA methods, all that's doing is literally grabbing the entire result. And these, what they're doing is breaking it down. So so for instance, with the app MFA, it's just breaking it into the OData type. So it's checking that OData type to see whether the authentication method is there or not. And it's same with the mobile office, all that sort of stuff. So I know TAP's not really used now because, it's very old school, but it's part of the authentication method you can add. So it's good to have on there. So all this basically does, and I've had to do it in a list format because the way it kind of has to execute in a specific order. If it doesn't execute in a specific order, it won't remove the MFA correctly. So for instance, if you have more than one, it always sets the app as a default. So you can't remove the app first, and otherwise, it'll just kind of error out and not remove anything. So these are kind of in the order in, depending on what's there. So if you've got tap, for example, essentially you have to remove that before it'll move anything else. All this is basically doing is just seeing if it exists. If it does exist, it'll run through it. If not, it'll bypass it and go straight to the next one. So, it's kind of same sort of thing. So with a phone compared to like tap, for instance, the tap's obviously unique every single time. So you have to kind of get you have to basically get the unique pick up the unique identifier, which I do each time. So once it does pick it up, it kind of deletes it. But with the phones, the ID is always the same. So for instance, you're literally just going all ID equals, and there it is. And then what you're doing, you're running that to remove the phone. So it's kind of the same pretty much all the way through, and it'll do it one by one. And again, it does it in the correct order. So for instance, I've had all these on at the same time, make sure it deletes correctly, and everything else like that. And it does a good job. Because obviously to me, I want this to be easy enough for pretty much anybody to kind of use, because it's not so much the reports that I'm too bothered about, because we do have a security team as well, so they can investigate, but it's just making sure that account is secure pretty much straight off. So it does update twice on the ticket, which I'll show you the ticket in a minute. So the first one is essentially just getting them results and it's pushing it down. So what it's essentially doing is getting that list of all them MFAs, and it does pull back the time for some of them. Some of them don't support that for some reason, and then obviously that's just your fail. So I'll quickly kind of show you what the whole ticket kind of looks like. I realised I spelled successfully wrong, but it was too late to kind of rerun it again, so you're going to have to deal with a typo. So it's just like little updates. So I know I could do one at the end to basically say exactly what it's done, but as it's running, I'd rather do each step of exactly what it's doing when it's doing it, because it overall it is extremely quick. And if you look at the time, it was quite close to when the demo started, so I did not want to risk running it again just in case. So yeah, simple thing, saying the password is successfully reset. It's now the session's invalidation request has been done, and this is what I was on about. So kind of compared to the report, for example, here, it's saying office phone, it's got the actual number, mobile numbers, all that lot. The only one that for some reason, and I actually found that out just as I'll looking shortly, the authentication method, the reason why it's coming up blank is because I put a space in the wrong place. So yeah, it's not pulling actually through, but I can fix that after. And then it'll say the Microsoft Authenticator app version. So it kind of lists all that on. While it's actually doing that, so while it's going through, because it takes a little while to kind of remove the MFA, I still want it to run. So that's why I kind of split off with the rules. So rules ran no matter kind of what was coming next. So as you can see here, and I think this is quite good, to be fair, because we do have PowerShell scripts that we've used, that I've created, that does do a lot of this. But a lot of people aren't comfortable with PowerShell and stuff like that, and plus, it's Rewst, it's awesome. So like it does here, it'll go through. For instance, it picks up the rule name, subject contains important, forward to data leak, for example. It picks up exactly what it's doing. So conditions, apply to all incoming emails, delete true. Whether it like here, it picks up what the importance is, where it's moving it to, and then straight underneath, action taken, disabled. So it's listing out all them rules for you, and it's disabling them. So you kind of know when you got to ring the client at the end of it. This has already kind of been done, so you can already speak to them about the rules and everything else, and just turn on what they need. And again, it picks up everything on here, kind of that's been removed. If there is any obviously issue, for instance, or it can't remove it, it will update it. So just going back to the MFA method, so there is obviously quite a few different ones you can do, and then one thing I did forget to probably touch on. Just in case there's other stuff, so like UB keys and stuff like that, all that is updated in the original ticket from the original result. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of few different things. Even for like Windows Hello for Business, all that sort of stuff. And there you go, there's your UB key. So it does update the ticket for that as well. But obviously, in regards to removing them, my main focus was just kind of remove the most common ones first. And obviously I can add stuff like that later on. So yeah, if anything is essentially on here that hasn't been disabled for whatever reason, it will tell you that as well. Kind of once it's done that, we need everyone to kind of know what's happening next. So we put the one-time link for the password that's been randomly generated into the ticket itself, and then it's basically kind of going through. So I've obviously need to change this because I fixed it and the MFA methods do get removed now. But yeah, so basically it will tell them to go do this, that, and the other, or whatever your policy is, essentially. So kind of at this point now, all rules. So the password reset. I do apologize. I'm still getting better at me today. Password reset is obviously invoked all the sessions. It's disabled the rules. It's disabled all MFA methods and everything else, and obviously block signing if that's an option as well. So that's all kind of done. The other thing I have done as well, so the form is, I know you got a lot of tick box options essentially. I've kind of just got rid of most of that, and put them hidden. So the tick by default. So when there's a breach, you want it to be as quick and responsive as possible. So what I see is the set standard. You always want the password to be reset. You always want to disable the rules, disable, email forwarding to external, that sort of thing. So this essentially kind of goes through that whole entire process without them having to sit there going through tick boxes to make sure everything's ticked. So it just makes it clean and simple. It took a little while to kind of get, but you can kind of see the overall effect of it. And again, it takes probably about 30 seconds to actually go from compromised to secured, which is really good. It's not a final product yet, but I just kind of want to showcase this because especially with MFA methods, that took ages to figure out, and I was quite proud to kind of do that one.
That's
Gareth.
really cool.
Hey, you got Aaron. I'm driving, but I wanted to say that's awesome. And I think someone in chat also is thinking the same way as myself. One of the best use cases of crates is unsyncing them, copying them, modifying them, and making them your own. Using our experience to help jumpstart your idea.
No, it was perfect. So we was obviously looking into building stuff like this ourselves anyway. But then when the crate come out, it was 10 leaps in front of where I was. So I was like, oh, I can use this part to my advantage, and that's kind of what I've done. But yeah, it's overall, Matt's crates had the foundation there, and I've just kind of added all the missing pieces. And again, I know the reporting's not perfect. That's something that could eventually go on. But in this case, my main concern was just making sure that account is secure, and then it gives us time to actually go do everything else manually if needed.
Yeah. No, also smart to not recreate the wheel in that case. Yeah.
Exactly. The one thing I did forget to add on this, so if you use the offboard and password reset, it will also do this for AD users. So it's not just for all those that are only on 365. If they're on AD, or have AD sync or anything like that, no matter which way they're set up, it will go reset all them passwords as well. So yeah, it's just something to kind of think about, because obviously I know originally this was created only for cloud, but you could use it for both ways.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? No, if not, Gareth has promised that he will be gracing us with his expertise and presence more frequently going forward. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Reed, you said between 15 and 20 minutes, and I think we have accurately split the difference. So the floor is yours.
All righty. Well, I hope this hasn't been too overhyped, or I can at least live up to expectations here. We're going to talk a little bit about webhooks and do some fun stuff with them, and maybe abuse them a little bit. And but I also have a way that we can it sort of make it useful as well. So let me find. Okay. And I don't think we'll have any problems with the issues, because I was actually working on one of these workflows the whole time the problem was happening. And as you see, these workflows don't really do anything. As a matter of fact, until like a week ago, you didn't even need this no-op. And then just recently, the workflows started failing for not having any kind of action in them whatsoever. They still work, you just get a failed result. Anyway, I've been doing some things, and I think I've talked previously about wanting to automate automations. And so I've been playing with sort of feeding more dynamic stuff in and out. And in playing with some of the figuring out what webhooks can and can't do, or what I can push them to do, and seeing previously some other folks have asked questions about, gosh, how did you do that thing where, you had like a game inside of your web browser? So all of these things are kind of related. And what I'm going to show here are a couple different webhooks. This first one, let me preface by saying, actually, you know what? Before we even get this far, let's show you where we're going. And so I'm going to take this and drop this in chat, if I can find chat. So you want to play along at home, feel free to hit that link. And this is just a demo, because really what I was doing was about back in the middle of summer, I was learning TypeScript. And so I took my puppy breath game engine that has existed for something I've worked on for many, many years, and was translating it from .NET to TypeScript in order to learn TypeScript. And the compiled output of a TypeScript project is just a gigantic block of JavaScript. So we can really just drop that right into our Rewst page here and take advantage of it. But just to see kind of what, real quick, this is a basic 2D game engine. We've got sprites, animation, this background is a tile map, so I can kind of show you here. There's our sprite sprite sheet for our player character. This is the tile map that we're only using this little top portion of tiles from. But we're going to see how we can actually cram a lot of functionality into basically a text box in Rewst. So all of these things that you've seen that are basically these kind of 2D in a browser games, they all essentially do the same thing. The root of it all is that you're going to use this HTML canvas element in your web page, and you're going to call it context to get this canvas 2D rendering context. And then you're going to add an event listener on the window, so that when the page finishes loading, you start calling a method repeatedly, and then that method will execute your game loop. So that is really just kind of what all of these things do. Now, what I did was build out a game engine to simplify making these sorts of little 2D games, because there's a lot of things that you're always going to need. So we'll just kind of look at this quick, and I'll try not to overwhelm with code, but I want to show that the basic gist of this. So even before we look here, let's just look at our webhook. So it's just a simple generic webhook. The only thing we've done is add the get method so that we can call it from a browser. And we've changed the content type to be text HTML so that the browser knows it's receiving a web page. And then we're just going to replace the body with the actual web page that we want to send. So, just real basic HTML. And then this is our key where we create our canvas element. It's going to do all of our rendering and do all the heavy lifting. At this point, you can apply whatever CSS you want, right? So I'm just making a static sized box, but again, you can lay this out however you want. It's HTML. So here starts our actual script that's going to have all of our game engine. And keep in mind that, long term and ideally, all of this code here would just be a script tag pointing to, a JavaScript file on GitHub. Eventually, this will be there. I just can't make any promises as to how long it'll take. So, we've got just like a bunch of math helpers that are boring but very useful. There's structures defined for key things like points and circles and rectangles. Define a dictionary object. We create asset management. The 2D game engine supports transforms, so we can scale and skew and rotate and flip and all those things. We're going to create an input manager, so like this makes it much easier for us to bind specific keys and then respond to that and be able to arbitrarily change it as we make our game. We need colliders for our physics, circles and rectangles. So just some very basic rudimentary 2D physics that will handle collision for us and let us move objects based on, velocities and say just very simple 2D physics. So we get kind of all these different pieces. Here's our player controller so that, this is what does a bunch of the grunt work for us to say, okay, this particular game object is our player. So it should handle all of the standard inputs we would expect. And, just provide us with kind of our physics body and things. Let's see, we get into here's our actual rendering class. So this is what's going to use that context from the web browser. And here we're actually going to do all of the rendering of our sprites and things. We got our class to handle animations and things, so our sprites can be easily animated. And then, of course, our core game object that represents every unique item in our game. Some classes to handle tile maps. That's part of where this engine's not complete yet. I started with the hardest background, so did tile map backgrounds first, but still have to do like basic static backgrounds with scrolling and parallax, things that would be expected with a basic game engine. We've got our scene, and then, okay, so we're almost done here. This is where the actual game engine's defined, and I just kind of left these comments from the TypeScript because it just is a clean list of the subsystems that are supported. So really, if all of this were published to GitHub, you would have one script tag that imports all of that, and then this is where you would actually start writing your particular game. So we're going to get that canvas element. We're going to create our context and instantiate our game engine from that context. And now we can start using all of the great stuff that our game engine gives us. So we're going to add our image assets by just naming them and, linking to these files that are hosted wherever they're hosted. We're going to handle or create a method to respond to our engine's load event. let's go ahead and while we're here, turn off some of this debugging. We'll leave FPS on, but let's change this to false. Let's change this to false. We're going to create a new tile map. Now the code does have the capability to serialize and save tile maps. As one of the last things I was working on before I got busy with other things and haven't gotten back to it was the ability to have a map editor. But anyway, without that, we're just going to programmatically build a map. And as a side reference, this would actually be like maybe your first pass of procedural map generation, where this is the algorithm to just create an empty room. And then you would do additional passes to fill it in with mazes and contents or whatever. Once we've got our scene ready here, we're going to set the tile map and start calling some helper functions to actually set up our game objects. And this is where the interesting part happens. So here we're going to make a game object I called Snarflax, and this was just some testing. When the transform was created, we're just going to rotate it by 45 degrees. And we're going to add an input binding here so that if we press the use button, which is previously defined as the F key, it's going to call this make ball and make a ball. So we just look here real quick, just to see kind of the benefit we're getting from the game engine. We create our new game object. We give it a image, that image asset that we loaded. We'll just create a variable because we know each frame of our image here, these are 48 by 48. And then we add a transform, give it a position on the screen, create a sprite from the sprite sheet, add a collider, add a physics body, add the player controller, add the animator, tell the animator to load those frames. So walk down, walk left, down, left, right, up. Set up some basic additional bindings. So we want the Q and the E button to rotate us. We want the R button to reset our rotation. Add some additional controls here that weren't mapped. So like here, we're going to add the plus and minus keys. And you can see by creating that mapping logic, it makes it really easy. If we wanted to add 4 more keys to this, it's just an array. We can put whatever keys we want. And so that's it. That all of that quickly sets up an entire character that is able to walk around the screen. And I didn't press F, but there's our ball that gets summoned when we hit F. And you can see right now, it doesn't really do anything interesting. And that's because when we make the ball, all we're really doing is giving it a transform, a sprite, a collider, and a body. And we enable collision, but the collision doesn't do anything. And then you can see this just finishes up our web page with the stuff that we see at the bottom down here. So let's just make this a little more interesting real quick, and we'll pop out of here. And I just saved in here some code. Just grab that real quick and come back into our trigger. Let's go down to our ball. All right, so our game object has this on collision event that we can add a handler for. So we just throw our little JavaScript handler on here that will get an instance to the object that collided with us. So we'll just do a naive implementation, and we're going to say that we're going to set our acceleration to the velocity of whatever hit us. Super simple. So we'll save that. And now anybody playing along at home, if you F5 and refresh this, oh, what happened? All that stuff should have disappeared. Didn't I turn it off? I thought I turned off the debugging, but you can see now when we summon the ball and run into it, it kind of sticks to us because it's getting its acceleration from our velocity.
So time check for you, Reed. There's 3
Yep.
minutes until
Oh,
4.
I'm almost
Wanted
out
to
of
let
time.
you know.
My goodness, I ran the whole thing through there. Okay, so super fast. Can we do anything interesting with that? Yes, we can. We can actually make a webhook. We can make a workflow that's got multiple webhooks, one that waits and one that doesn't wait. And we can make the non-waiting webhook emit HTML that will turn around and call the waiting webhook with the secret that we passed in that. So it's the secret's revealed, but we don't care because we didn't care about this particular one. So basically this will, if I go and grab this webhook real quick, because I know I'm still haven't gotten to the thing everybody really wants. You can see it happened really fast, but it was loading and then it redirected us to a weighted webhook. So this actually came from the execution of the workflow. And then the last thing is what all can we possibly do with this? Well, anything that we can cram into a browser. So here is one more that this one we're actually going to do a little ginger. We're actually going to do some Roosty stuff. So we're going to build a list and we're going to put some names and some links, and then we're going to evaluate the list and we're going to look at our URL parameters and decide what to render. So depending on our URL parameters, we're going to render 2 different types of output. So what does that look like? Let me give this to everyone for a moment. But that brings us to the Rewst Arcade, where without any ID in our URL, we get a list of games to choose from. When we hit one of these links, it just calls the same workflow again, but this time with a URL. And now we're playing Doom and Rewst. Okay, so that's my thing. I could go on, obviously, but I'm out of time.
Wow, Reed. Wow. That is super impressive. This definitely helped my day. And I'm sure there's a ton of people that have questions. And if you could hang on for like 5 minutes after
I'm
the
here
end.
as long as anybody wants to hang out. I'm good this afternoon. I set my afternoon.
And then for everyone else that's still on the call, earlier Tim did an open source demo using that also used Agent Smith. If you have tried Agent Smith in the past and ran into a CSP token refresh issue, that has been resolved. So you may want to try Agent Smith again. All right, so thank you everyone for joining. If you want to give questions, we're going to stay here and allow folks to ask Reed questions. So go ahead and raise your hands or ask in the chat and Reed can answer.
Yeah, I'm right now trying to go through because I didn't see anything anybody was posting. So I'm
I saw a
catch
hand
up there.
raise. Saw a hand raise.
I went down.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to just come off mute and
I'm sure that you've got a lot of people's minds spinning now. Can Rewst play Crisis?
Excuse me, Reed, would you be able to drop the link to the Rewst Arcade you had there? I think that would be fun to explore.
yeah, I had dropped it just before, but I'll throw it in there again because I think it disappeared in chat pretty fast. So one of the things I did want to mention about the arcade, that expect that URL to stop working. I put this together pretty quick. I am guilty of not reading the TOU over at DOS Zone. So the the blobs that have the data in them are hosted by DOS Zone, and I'm just pulling from their content network. And I don't really know if that's a fair thing to do, because they make it super easy for you to build your own data blobs and store them wherever you want to store them. So really, I should take the time, because I actually own almost all of these games anyway. I have the DOS versions of them, so I could make my own DOS box rollouts for each of these and republish it under my own resources. But I feel like this is a fair, like unsanctioned promotion for them, right? So, everybody check out their website and see what they can do.
Anyone else have any questions, comments?
So when you're going to make a blog engine using this? Seems like you're halfway there.
A blog engine.
Yeah, I mean, you got the pages changing. You can pull content from wherever. Like, seems like you got most of the pieces there.
Yeah,
And then you got a Rewst
guess
blog.
someone could. I'll tell you, I'd be more interested in, like I said, originally the game engine part of this started out as a TypeScript project, but now I wonder if I shouldn't just throw it on GitHub as JavaScript. And I mean, is anybody else in this call interested? Did I pique anyone's interest in maybe wanting to flesh out the rest of this thing and then just have a drop dead simple reference it from your web page 2D game engine?
Yes, I was about to call out Logan. I was gonna say, I think that like building up, even in the air of what Tim was saying, right? Building up our open source community of interesting stuff that we can all do is pretty cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was neat that he was on that open source track first, because you're right. It's absolutely a dovetail into, this kind of stuff, because really what I was trying to show is that you can find anything that executes in a browser and cram it into Rewst doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And like that last thing that I had just worked that out before the call, as far as having a webhook that needs a secret to be executed by a webhook that doesn't need a secret. And I don't know if there's still any developers on that can explain why we have to provide that secret value to a webhook that waits. What the thought process was there.
Tim's on. I'm not sure, Tim, if you know the answer there.
I don't. I think I used to know, but I can't remember what it was right now. And we're kind of short on developers this afternoon.
Yeah.
For the call.
I can probably comment on that, because I'm a bit familiar with like webhook stuff. So the reason for that is you got to remember, right, with webhooks, especially the ones on Rewst, they're open to the public, right? So the idea there is that by requiring that password or key or whatever, it just makes sure that whoever's hitting the webhook is somebody you've authorized to hit the webhook, and not just somebody random who figured it out on their own.
Right. That was my assumption. That being the case, though, then maybe I should make a canny, because it feels like it should be optional, right? Like if I don't care, if I want the public to hit my endpoint and I need my workflow to execute, right? So it might be desirable.
I agree and disagree at the same time, because I agree it would also be helpful, but then I'm thinking to myself, I would then probably do it when I'm not supposed to do it. So I prefer being forced to do it myself. I think if you're going to put it on Canny, provide an example of when you can't provide it, as opposed to it just being a situation where you don't want to, because I think that will get more traction. Because if they look at it and they go, well, look, all we're going to do here is we're going to potentially introduce a big security issue just so that your life is a little bit easier, versus if you can actually say, no, look, I need to use this and I don't have the ability to specify headers, for example, on the request, then and show an example of that. then I think you'll have more traction.
I hear
That's a
you.
good one.
I mean, it really come up with any legitimate use for the second example I had to blow through, but because it is the workaround, right? It literally takes the secret code, embeds it inside the response data of a redirect that the end user is never going to see. So obviously, if you sniff the whole chain, you'll see the secret, but an end user is never going to see it. And as far as they know, they're just still on the same URL. So yeah, I mean, I can work around it, but it just, artificial limitations usually should have the option to bypass.
If you can put a little bit of effort into making it do what you want anyways, then you should have the
Right.
option. Yeah. Cool. Well, that was fun. Are there any other questions or anything else that anybody wants to stick around for? If not, I will see a bunch of you next week, and we will be doing an open mic still, but it'll be live from IT Nation. So anybody who's there and wants to be live, shoot me a note. Say goodbye otherwise.
Bye. Have a good afternoon.
See y'all later. Bye.